What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another episode of Lions Latest as we go through the latest Detroit Lions news. So let's get it started.
Way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Yeah!
He's the GOAT! Oh, there's nobody!
Welcome, everybody, to a video. Glad you guys are here. Yes, we have some Lions news to talk about, okay? Now, there's not a ton of news to report on today, but I did want to talk about some of the latest Lions headlines. OTAs began today for the Detroit Lions, but unfortunately, we don't really have any news to report on with OTAs because they're not letting reporters in until Thursday. So Thursday, we should have some things to discuss about OTAs, some notes, but today we don't have that. However, we do have a few notes on number changes for the Detroit Lions. That's right. So apparently, Jamie Collins may have given up number 58 to Penei Sewell. So this must be something that someone spotted, that Penei Sewell was wearing the number 58. Now, I did a quick little Google search, and apparently 2 players can't have the same number on an NFL team. I didn't know that. I thought offense, defense, maybe they'd be allowed to. No, you cannot have the same number. So I guess Penei Sewell wearing the number 58. I don't know if this is official or anything like that, but it could mean that Jamie Collins could be giving up his number for Penei Sewell, the rookie. And that would be pretty awesome. I mean, that's a pretty cool thing to do for a veteran like Jamie Collins to be like, yeah, rookie, you can have your number in college. Like that, you can have that. I'll just choose a different number. Now, Jamie Collins has wore different numbers. He wore the number 91 back when he was with New England. So maybe he changes his number. You know, maybe he does. Maybe he sees a little bit of a different role. So he's like, I got to get a different number that suits me a little bit better. Maybe he'll be number 59, right? No more Reggie Ragland. I don't know if there's a 59 off the top of my head. I don't think there is. So we'll see. That would be pretty awesome if Penei Sewell got his, college football number as his rookie number. That's a pretty cool thing for a guy like Jamie Collins to do, being the vet on his team, because, you don't really have to do that. And also, Tim Boyle must have been spotted wearing the number 12. Is this a shot at Aaron Rodgers taking number 12? Find out next time on Lion. No, play. So, the TB12 joke's already coming out, and I love it. I love it. TB12. Okay, Tim Boyle, I see you. Maybe when you look up TB12, maybe now Tim Boyle will show up, and it's like, oh, hey, is that Tom Brady? No, it's not Tom Brady, but it's TB12. Hey, I rock with that. That's all we really have from the OTAs because, like I said, we don't really have any notes on it right now, but hopefully Thursday we will, so stay tuned for that. However, we have some more news, and this is about a former Detroit Lion. This is Kelvin Johnson. This is Megatron, number 81. And apparently the relationship with the Detroit Lions must be getting a little bit better because a report coming out from Dave Burkett on Twitter stated that the Detroit Lions will be paying back Kelvin Johnson the $1 million. That, basically they asked for money when he retired from his signing bonus. He wasn't happy with it. And since then, there's kind of been a split between the two parties, Kelvin Johnson and the Detroit Lions. And they really haven't gotten along because of that. But Rod Wood, Sheila Ford Hamp were like, hey, we want to fix this relationship, whatever it takes. And apparently, according to Dave Burkett, the Lions will be paying Kelvin Johnson $1 million. Here's what Dave Burkett said. Lions will give CJ back his money to get him back in the fold. It's just a matter of how payments are structured. Okay, now I don't know if that's a joke or what, but I'm sure Sheila Ford Hamp could pull out that checkbook, write a $1 million check, and be like, here you go, Kelvin Johnson, with no problems. I'm just saying, I'm pretty sure she could do that. She might have that in cash, for real.
Here comes the money.
Seriously, either way, I think this is really awesome if this does happen. Again, it's just a report, so it's not like, we know it's 100% true, but it would be pretty cool to have Kelvin Johnson back in the fold. I'm not really going to get into the money side of things because I don't really have a side on it, if I'm just being honest, but I think it would be pretty awesome to get him back here like we have with Barry Sanders. I mean, obviously the terms haven't been the best, but Rod Wood, Sheila Ford are like, hey, we want to fix this, and I've heard former Lions say they want to be a part of the organization. I think it was Joik Bell that said that, like, us, we want to be a part of this. So I think this is a great step in the right direction. I think the first step, when you hear that these players that said they weren't going to be showing up to OTAs are showing up to OTAs, your leaders of the team, they're showing up to be there with Dan Campbell, which is awesome. And now news like this, like the Lions are really trying to mend things because, I mean, there was a lot of divide within the Detroit Lions and organization, and that's a problem. You don't want to have that. And I really hope that this does get fixed, and maybe this is the way that it does get fixed. I don't exactly have really an opinion, like I said, on the money side of things, but either way, I hope that Kelvin Johnson is back and involved with the Detroit Lions soon because that would be pretty cool. I mean, he's an all-time great for the Lions. Let's keep him involved here, right? I mean, that'd be pretty cool. So that's what we have for Detroit Lions news. Also, apparently there are no restrictions, at least as of now, for Lions home games this season. We know that they're expecting to have 100% full capacity, and there was restrictions that Ford Field could take, but as of now, there are no restrictions. which is awesome. So man, I mean, we're looking good right now. We're sitting pretty. Obviously, don't want to jinx nothing, but we're sitting pretty, and I'm excited for the season. But now let's talk about this news that came from ESPN. It's not really news, more of a prediction that came from ESPN, but I thought we'd talk about it because this is something that we haven't really talked about before, but I think it's someone that we definitely wouldn't hurt to talk about because I've considered putting him in different videos. And this is Trai Turner. So according to an ESPN reporter, he predicted that the Detroit Lions will sign Trai Turner to a 1-year, $4.5 million deal this offseason. Basically, I guess he did this for, like 16 free agents, 15, 16 free agents. And one of those guys was Trai Turner, and he predicted the Lions to sign Trai Turner. Now, the connections are pretty clear here, right? He was with Anthony Lynn last season. The LA Chargers traded Okung to the Carolina Panthers. In return, the LA Chargers, they got Trai Turner. So we know that there's a clear connection between the two. And I thought an interesting note of this because Trai Turner obviously has recently been released because last year was not a very good year for him. I thought an interesting note here is that he was released after Anthony Lynn was fired from the LA Chargers. So it's not like Anthony Lynn released Trai Turner. So technically, if Anthony Lynn was still there, he may not have ever released him. So he liked him enough to make the trade. Maybe he didn't play great last season. It all just depends on how Anthony Lynn feels about him, if they're going to bring him back, basically, if he's going to sign him in free agency. But the fact is, he didn't release them. He was already fired, and then the Carolina Panthers decided to release him basically 2 months later. So I thought that was just an interesting note that had to be brought up. ESPN reporter says $4.5 million. Now, the Lions, as of right now, according to Over the Cap, have a little bit over $21 million in cap space. I don't know if that's completely updated correctly with some of these rookie contracts, but the Lions do have some money to make signings like this if they wanted to. But apparently the latest I've heard with Trai Turner is that he's looking for a $2 to $3 million deal. So we could even get him cheaper than that, potentially, than the $4.5 million, unless there's multiple teams interested, which pushes his price up. But he's still available, and that's probably for a reason, which means that it may not be that expensive to bring him in. It could be cheaper than that. Now, the Lions have not signed Trai Turner yet, but I definitely watched enough film as if they did sign him. Yeah, that's a problem. I usually don't do that. Like, if we haven't signed the guy yet, I watch a little bit. I'm like, okay, here's how I feel. But I don't watch this much. I watched film like the Lions signed him. So, yeah, Trai Turner is going on 28 years old now. He was a former third-round pick by the Carolina Panthers back in 2014. And like I said, he was traded to the LA Chargers last year where Anthony Lynn was the head coach. So there's a clear connection there. And there's something that he liked about him to make that trade. And at the time, I mean, if you go look back at the trade, I mean, many people were saying, hey, Trai Turner, this was a steal. But it turned out that maybe it wasn't a steal because he definitely did not have his best season last season. And injuries played a very big factor for him. So I watched some film. I'm going to talk about it a little bit here, but I'm trying not to go too into detail because, like I said, if we sign him, I want to be able to do a film video on him. So I don't want to go super into detail here, but I did watch a lot of film. You go online to look up Trai Turner PFF, and you see his PFF grade. It was terrible last season. It was really, really bad last season. And when I watched him on film, I mean, he didn't look awful, but the word that I wrote down for him, and we'll get to it in kind of like my, final thoughts, is that I wrote down inconsistent. I mean, that's kind of how I felt watching him. From down to down, snap to snap, I saw inconsistencies. Some snaps, he looked dominant. It was like, dang, okay, I see you. This is a Pro Bowl guard. And other snaps, it looked terrible. And I was like, okay, that's rough. That's why he's still available as a free agent. Like, it was that inconsistent play from snap to snap. But a very big factor to this, and I can't underestimate how big of a factor this is not that he's just going to a new team, but also the fact that he had so many injuries last season. He really dealt with injuries last year. He was limited to playing in 9 games. Some games he was in and out of the lineup. Injuries were a big factor for him last season. Obviously, that's a big factor for him still being available because teams can be worried about injuries. And this is something that has shown up through his career. We've seen injuries. I think we saw them back in college, but he dealt with some injuries last season. Like I said, he only played in 9 games. He had a chest injury, a groin injury that caused him to miss a lot of time. Injuries were a very big factor. But if you listen to Hank Fraley when he talked about Big V, remember what he brought up. Big V needs to stay healthy. We got to keep this guy healthy because last season, inconsistent because of the injuries. The thing is with the offensive line, I feel like you have to be able to find the field consistently to play well. And that's what it's all about from the offensive line spot, right? You're not going to dominate every play, but man, if you take a play off, it shows. It shows right away because there's just so much talent on the defensive line in this league that technique is not sound on a play. It's going to show very quickly, especially against some of the better pass rushers, and you're going to be exposed fast. And I thought that was the name of the game for him. Honestly, from down to down was inconsistency. Game to game, I wasn't sure if he was going to play, right? Injuries showed up. So that's a very big factor, similar to what Big V had to deal with last season. Start with him as a run blocker a little bit here. So when I look at him as a run blocker, this is a very high intelligent, smart offensive lineman. You can tell that he really understands the scheme that he was a part of. Now, let's make it clear, he would be a scheme fit for the Detroit Lions, right? We're talking about an offense that's going to be a multiple spread offense that's going to take things I think it would be a clear scheme fit for the Detroit Lions. He's a zone blocking scheme fit. That fits the scheme for the Detroit Lions. There is a scheme fit here, and it seemed like as the season went on, obviously he had to deal with injuries, so he's kind of on and off the field. But later in the season, when you watch this film, the player he was really picking up on the little things, and he was a very smart player that really understood his assignments, but also understood running lanes. As a run blocker, he really understood running lanes and where the play was going, where it was supposed to be developed to. So he would position his body and position his defender to open up big holes for a running back. So he was a very smart, high IQ player. This is something that goes back to college, very highly praised for it, but his ability to pull from the guard position. He is pretty athletic as a guard, so it's his ability to pull out, run block, or potentially pass block as well. They did that a few times, especially off of play action. They would pull him out to take on an edge rush or something like that to sit in front and protect Justin Herbert. That's a lot of athleticism to trust your guard to do that. So athletically, there's definitely some gifts there. And like I said, his pulling ability is really good, especially in the run game. So getting things to the outside. He's also a second level blocker, fits the zone rushing scheme. He's always looking to get to the next level. He can block in the second level. He can pick up linebackers pretty well. An issue that I did see with him blocking to the second level is that he doesn't really break down, and obviously at his size, I mean, we're talking about a guy that is 315 pounds here. Really expect him to go out there, break down, and pick up a block at the second level. I mean, that's a really tough ask, but he can get out there, and sometimes he can get his hands on the defender and push him out of play, knock him over, and open up some big lanes down the field. So I think schematically the scheme fit is there for the Detroit Lions, the athleticism there. Another part that I love is his arm length. This shows up in pass protection as well, and we'll get to that, but as a run blocker, his arm length shows up as well, especially as a zone blocker. It helps him pick up some of those linebackers, helps him reach out and grab some of those players, and also create some lanes. Like I said, he's a very smart player, understand where the play is developing towards. His arm length is very huge in that aspect. He has 34-inch arms, which is very long for the guard position. Okay, that's pretty long for a tackle. That's like good size for a tackle. So it's pretty long for the guard position. One problem is his arm strikes could be pretty weak. He could kind of just, throw his arms out there and get smacked down pretty easily. Sometimes he wouldn't even put his arms out. He would just kind of simply try to just chuck somebody in the run game, and that would just get him ran over. His arm strike, they didn't always have power. They didn't always have explosiveness to him. He's a pretty strong player. Like, he's got a pretty strong upper body, but some of his strikes were just kind of weak. Balance was a very, very big factor for him. It was a very big problem for him, not only as a run blocker, but also his pass protection. Balance was a really big problem for Trai Turner, and when you watch him play, I mean, this guy fell a lot. He was on the ground a lot because his balance was not very good, and it had multiple reasons. Lunging, guessing, anticipation was off. He would get very skinny. He wouldn't get a wide base, he'd get very skinny, and when he got skinny, he would just get mauled over, and he would fall. Also, he had an issue of kind of anticipating things, looking to dive ahead and, kind of trip up a defensive lineman, and he would completely whiff. He had a couple of whiffs as a run blocker that were just ugly. I mean, they were simply ugly. He got a skinny base, and if you do that, I mean, you're in trouble. When he kept a wide base, the guy could be dominant. I mean, he could move people back, but other times he would get his legs really close to his shoulders, and he'd get really tight and small, and that's when guys could just maul over him, and he just didn't look as strong at all. I mean, from one play, he could look really strong. The next play, he didn't at all. So that's what I mean when I talk about inconsistency. It's also injuries, but it's snap to snap. There were inconsistencies in his play. In pass protection, his arm length is very important here, and it showed up a lot specifically in lateral movement. He has good lateral movement. I was actually kind of impressed by this. His ability to keep up with speed rushers is pretty good. Of course, every once in a while you're going to get beat. Really helped him, and what made him look even quicker than he was is that arm length. He could keep up with speed rushers because he could kind of reach out and grab them, but he could also move his feet pretty well. He's pretty light on his toes, and he can move side to side well. I think that's a lot of it stems from being such a good pulling guard, but at the offensive line spot, some of those speed rushers, obvious passing downs, third and long, they line up a linebacker. He could move side to side with those guys. I was extremely impressed with that ability as a pass protector. Also, you can kind of see some of the veteran nuances to his game. He definitely has a way to finish. He understands finishing as a pass protector, the techniques behind it, some of the pull down, the smackdown techniques to use their weight against them and kind of put them in the ground, finishing off the play. He could do that, and he did that against some of the best. I'm talking doing that against guys like Grady Jarrett. All right, there were some glimpses where he looked special. He understands some of the finishing technique, senses when he has the advantage to finish off a pass rusher, and he attacks. I mean, he has that mauler, mean, nasty mentality that a lineman needs. He had pretty good awareness. I would say it's above average. The only knock here is that he did get late sometimes, and other times he would get super focused, that even if he saw him, he would just lock into this guy, and he would let things by him. Now, sometimes it's always, hey, you take the inside guy first, so it makes sense. Sometimes he was a little late, but I would say in general, above average awareness as a pass protector, keeping his head on a swivel and always looking to help when he has the opportunity to. And he does battle. You know, he battles with his hands consistently, usually gets pretty good hand placement as well, can usually at least get one hand inside of a defensive line. When he does that, of course, that changes everything. Once he gets one hand inside, he can change a lot of things there. Sometimes he would get a little bit too high. So hand placement was usually pretty good. I mean, obviously, sometimes you're going to get to the outside and they're going to beat you, but I would say more times than not, it was in a good spot, but sometimes he would get a little tall, and it kind of coincided with, you know, getting very skinny, losing some of that foundation, and that's when problems occurred, both as a run and a pass protector. Anticipating pass rush moves against him, anticipating where a pass rusher would come, and he would take a complete guess, and he'd get completely out of position, and he was an inconsistent pass protector, and we're very concerned as an offense because you don't want your quarterback getting hit, and when there's times where guys can just run by him clean because he would take the wrong guess, take the wrong lunge forward, that's very concerning. If your technique's out of whack for one play, especially against some of these top pass rushers, you're going to be exposed very, very quickly. As I stated before, what really helps him in these situations is he's light on his toes so he can try to get back into plays, and also his length is huge for recovery. You're going to have these missteps as they're trying to guess and anticipate things by pass rushers when you're trying to keep up with some of these speed rushers. That's why you don't want to get in these obvious passing down. I'd say he's lacking power because he does look pretty strong as like an anchor. He's got good size, but going back to the run blocking thing as a pass protector, when he doesn't get a good wide base, he can get mauled back. Now, you know, some nose tackles, defense tackles are just that strong and they can push you back, but he did get moved back. He could definitely get moved back by some of those guys into the pocket, but when he kept a wide base, for the most part, he could hold up a little bit longer. It's just when he got skinny, he could be mauled back specifically. Not very fast. I've noticed this, like on screens, things like that. I expected him to be faster in the open field than he was because he blocks the second level, he pulls so well. He's not that fast. He ran a 4.93 40, but he looked really slow, and like I said, he doesn't really break down. I don't expect him to, but he doesn't really break down. So, you know, I didn't want to go too into detail with this because, like I said, if we sign him, we'll do a film video, but I did want to note a couple of things here. I think here's the verdict, is that the Detroit Lions are in an interesting spot with a guy like this because they have Big V. And Big V, to me, he's going to play the right guard role next season. I think he will start the right guard spot unless Logan Stenberg surprised and he took that role. I think he starts at right guard next season. I think it's a kind of a prove it year for Big V in a way. The Lions didn't just sign him, but it's kind of prove it because, hey, if you don't play well this year, we're going to exercise you out. We're going to move on after the season. Okay, prove it year. I kind of think that's what it is. You got to stay healthy. That would be very similar to the signing. The signing would make sense because it's kind of what the Lions did all offseason with all their signings. Quentin Dunbar, everybody they signed, 1 year deal, bring him in, coming off a rough year, but they're a good player, coming off a rough year, that it's a good player, and he's looking to bounce back and get a big contract next season. So it would make sense. The issue is you have a guy like Big V there, but a signing like this, especially if he earned a depth role for the Detroit Lions, or he started, of course, then it could allow, again, like I said, the Lions to trade a guy like Terrell Crosby, because then you do have Big V who could play the tackle spots. It could mean that Big V doesn't start, but it would be great competition for him. I mean, if you want to earn this guard spot, okay, you got to beat out Trai Turner. You got to beat out Logan Stenberg. It's three guys here competing for the same role. Worst case scenario, you got good depth. You could just be risking the fact that you might have a big cap hit on your bench. I don't see a problem with that. Honestly, I think it's good to have depth there. So I wouldn't be mad at this signing, and I could see it. It would make sense. Lions have done this offseason. If they didn't have to spend a lot of money, they'd get him for $2 to $3 million. Schematically, as long as Anthony Lynn likes him, in a nasty offensive lineman, you can kind of see it. He brings that attitude, which you need to have to be successful at the NFL level. I mean, I could see this being a signing, and I wouldn't have any issues with it. But there are inconsistencies in his game. So I wouldn't pencil him in and be like, hey, yeah, this guy's going to be our starter, because I don't know. He's coming off kind of a rough season, but it's just up and down, up and down, up and down. It's just like Big V, you got to stay healthy. So what could turn into, if both these guys are able to stay healthy, you could be looking at two guys that are very talented on the same team. Kind of out on a limb on this one to say, yes, I would be perfectly fine with the Lions making this signing, especially if it's on that cheaper deal. I mean, really nothing hurt you, right? Low risk. I mean, it doesn't hurt anything giving him a 1 year deal. Would I give him a multi-year deal? No, but I would give him a 1 year deal to compete. There's nothing wrong with having friendly competition. And if he comes back and he's healthy, he may be more consistent. Being in the same system again with Anthony Lynn could be very beneficial for him picking it up, right? I mean, now there's less turnover for him. So I think it makes a lot of sense. So wouldn't count on some of the left guard flexibility this could add. I mean, behind Jonah Jackson, right? Stenberg might be able to do that. I think Big V probably could do it, but then Trai Turner could probably do it as well. With all this being said, I don't get to see Evan Heim, Tommy Kramer. I don't know how these UDFAs are looking, but if those guys are showing promise, then this isn't really necessary. But, I mean, that's something that they can make. If they want to just bring it in for competition, if the contract is cheap enough, it may not be that big of a deal because it's that cheap of a contract where you're not losing that much money. Of course, you don't want to give him a short deal, guarantee money, and just lose money. But I think, honestly, there's enough upside here to maybe give it a shot, depending on how some of these young guys look. Of course, it's early. This doesn't have to be something that you do right now. It could be something that you do closer to the season if he's still available. The injuries are something you have to be concerned about because you signing him doesn't guarantee that he's going to be a healthy depth player, even if he's not a starter, because he's had to deal with the injuries that he's had to. But it would be very similar to a lot of our other signings. And I know people bring up the Pro Bowl thing. I don't care about the Pro Bowls. Really doesn't matter to me at all. I don't care if you have 0. I don't care if you have 5. He had 5 before this. Doesn't matter, right? He had 5 Pro Bowls, and now look where he is. He's not signed. He's looking for 2 to 3 million. If you're on a good team, you're going to get recognized. If the Lions do sign him, I probably will go watch some of his older film because I'm assuming his older film was probably more consistent from down to down, and that's why he's graded out much higher than it was last season. Being healthy and, really getting back to that snap to snap, down, being a consistent player for your team, and maybe it just wasn't the right scheme fit. He seems like a solid scheme fit, though. I think he would be solid schematically for the Detroit Lions if they brought him in. And again, I have no issues with depth, so if it's cheap, why not? See what can happen. I have no issues with that whatsoever if the Lions want to make something like that happen and see what he can do, just like a lot of our other signings this offseason. Be consistent, but the guy can play. In flashes, he'll look great. Other flashes, he looks bad. But is it worth the signing? I could see it. Low risk, high upside, potentially compete for a depth position. Scheme fit? Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at it. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.